What if I told you one of the rarest, most powerful Corvettes ever built was never meant for the public eye? A Corvette so extreme that Chevrolet refused to advertise it, built only a handful, and then buried the project forever.
Most car guys recognize the ZR1 badge. But the ZR2?
That's the one Chevrolet doesn't want you to remember. In 1971, as government crackdowns threatened to kill big block muscle, Chevy quietly unleashed one last outlaw machine. Only 12 cars escaped, and every one of them was a rolling time bomb of raw horsepower and rebellion. This wasn't a Corvette for weekend cruising or midlife crises. The ZR2 was built for drivers who wanted to wrestle with danger every time they pushed the throttle. And the craziest part? Its true power may have been far greater than Chevy was willing to admit.
1. The Corvette's secret sibling.
When you think of Corvette performance, one badge usually comes to mind: ZR1. It's been the flagship for speed across multiple generations, a name every enthusiast recognizes. But hiding in the shadows was another badge, one that most people never even knew existed.
That badge was ZR2.
Unlike the ZR1, which became a symbol of American performance pride, the ZR2 was never meant to be mass celebrated. It appeared just once, in 1971, then disappeared forever.
No marketing campaigns. No flashy magazine covers.
Chevy practically pretended it didn't exist. And yet, under the skin, it may have been one of the most dangerous and thrilling Corvettes ever built. For Chevy, this wasn't about building another street machine for casual buyers. The ZR2 was a tool, a weapon, engineered for serious racers and drivers who craved pure adrenaline. But the secrecy behind it begs the question. If this Corvette was so incredible, why would Chevrolet keep it hidden from the world? 2 to 1971, the storm brewing. The early 1970s were a turning point for American performance. The golden era of the muscle car was beginning to crack under pressure. New emissions rules were clamping down. Insurance companies were jacking up premiums on high-horsepower machines, and the government was warning automakers to prepare for stricter safety standards. At the same time, whispers of an energy crisis were starting to ripple through the industry. By 1971, muscle cars were being defanged left and right. Compression ratios dropped. Engines lost their edge. Cars that had been fire-breathing monsters just a few years earlier were suddenly shadows of themselves.
Most manufacturers surrendered.
They downsized, softened, and hoped the storm would pass.
But Chevrolet wasn't ready to give in.
At least, not right away. For one last year, the Corvette team decided to go all in, creating a package so extreme that it completely ignored the industry's retreat. That package would carry a forgotten badge: ZR2. It was Chevrolet's final stand for big block fury, and it was about to unleash one of the most dangerous Corvettes ever to hit the streets. 3. What made the ZR2 special? On the surface, the 1971 Corvette ZR2 didn't look much different from any other Stingray of the era. Same pinched waist, same muscular curves, same long hood that hinted at trouble beneath. But pop that hood, and you'd find the secret Chevy was hiding: the LS6454 big block V8. Officially, Chevrolet rated it at 425 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. But here's the twist: many believe that number was a flat-out lie. Rumors suggest Chevy deliberately underrated the LS6 to discourage everyday buyers from ordering it, while insiders claimed the motor actually pumped out closer to 500 horsepower right off the showroom floor. Some even argue that with the right tuning, the LS6 could embarrass exotic imports that cost twice as much. This wasn't just an engine. It was a statement, a middle finger to the growing list of regulations and restrictions. Built with aluminum heads, a high-flow Holley carburetor, and heavy-duty internals, the LS6 was pure violence wrapped in fiberglass. And unlike the boulevard cruisers of the time, the ZR2 wasn't built to look pretty at car shows. It was built to terrify anyone reckless enough to map the throttle. The message was clear: if you were behind the wheel of a ZR2, you weren't just driving a Corvette. You were holding on to the very last breath of America's big block muscle era. 4. Track weapon, not a toy.
Chevy didn't design the ZR2 for comfort. They designed it for combat.
Every part of the package screamed purpose-built performance, starting with the infamous Muncie M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed manual. This transmission wasn't smooth, it wasn't forgiving. It was built to handle massive torque without exploding, and it earned its nickname from the brutal gear whine it made. Backing it up was a twin-disc clutch, designed for racers who needed durability under punishment.
Cooling?
The ZR2 had a heavy-duty aluminum radiator with a metal shroud, ready to keep that 454 alive at full throttle. Brakes? A beefed-up J56 system with power discs up front.
And suspension?
The upgraded F41 performance setup, special shocks, stiffer springs, and fat sway bars that did their best to tame the sheer weight of that big block hanging over the front axle. But here's the catch. While Chevy loaded the ZR2 with go-fast parts, they stripped away anything that might slow it down.
No AOC. No power steering. No power windows. No rear defogger. No radio. Not even wheel covers. The ZR2 wasn't for showing off at the drive-in. It was for the hardcore driver who cared only about lap times and drag slips. It was a Corvette reduced to its rawest form, a street-legal race car that didn't care if you sweated, strained, or lost your hearing. The ZR2 wasn't built for comfort. It was built to test your courage. 5 performance numbers that shocked everyone. On paper, the Corvette ZR2 was rated at 425 horsepower. But on the street and strip, it felt like much, much more. Contemporary tests put its 0 to 60 sprint at around 5.3 seconds, blistering for 1971. And in the quarter mile, the ZR2 clocked in at 13.6 seconds at over 104 miles per hour. For perspective, that made it quicker than most European sports cars, costing nearly twice as much. Chevrolet's own LS5 big block in the same year made 365 horsepower, but the ZR2's LS6 left it in the dust. Even the 911 of the early 70s, which carried a price tag near $9,000, couldn't compete with the Corvette's brute force. The ZR2's base price hovered just above $7,000 with the package, meaning dollar for dollar. This was arguably the most vicious new car you could buy in America. But here's where things get interesting.
Because of its stripped-down nature, the ZR2 was actually lighter than a standard LS6 Corvette. That meant its acceleration numbers were just a touch sharper, a fraction quicker, the kind of edge racers dream about.
This wasn't just performance for bragging rights.
It was the kind of raw speed that could humble nearly anything on the road. And yet, almost nobody outside of Chevy's inner circle even knew it existed. 6. Why Chevy hid it. With performance numbers that could embarrass rivals and a setup built for hardcore drivers, you'd think Chevrolet would have shouted about the ZR2 from the rooftops. But instead, they did the exact opposite. The ZR2 was practically hidden from the public.
No flashy ads. No big unveilings.
Barely a whisper in sales brochures.
Why?
Because Chevy knew what kind of beast they had created. The ZR2 was too raw, too dangerous, and too demanding for the average buyer. This wasn't a Corvette you cruised around town with one hand on the wheel. It was a car that required both hands, and nerves of steel. Chevy feared that if the wrong kind of driver got behind the wheel, disaster would follow. So instead of marketing it, they kept it quiet, almost like an inside secret for serious enthusiasts who were in the know. In the end, only 12 buyers were bold enough, or connected enough, to check every box and walk away with one. And just like that, the ZR2 vanished. By 1972, the LS6 engine was retired, and the package was gone for good. It was as if Chevrolet had built the ultimate Corvette, then immediately buried it before the world could react. 7. The death of the big block era. The Corvette ZR2 didn't just disappear because Chevy wanted to keep it secret. Timing played a brutal role. By 1971, the golden age of muscle cars was already gasping for air. The government had started cracking down with emissions regulations, forcing automakers to lower compression ratios and strangle performance. Insurance companies were jacking up premiums on anything with a big block, making these cars financially painful to own. And with the looming 1973 oil crisis, the idea of a 454 cubic inch monster suddenly felt like a liability, not a selling point.
Chevrolet saw the writing on the wall.
The LS6 engine that powered the ZR2 was dropped after just 1 year, and the ZR2 package itself was axed almost immediately.
No second chances. No comeback.
In many ways, the ZR2 was the last hurrah of the untamed Corvette, a car built with no compromises, just raw speed and racing focus. Looking back, it feels almost symbolic. Just as the muscle car era was collapsing under pressure, Chevy released its most hardcore Corvette ever, and then slammed the door shut.
The ZR2 wasn't just rare.
It became a marker of the end of an era, the final flash of brilliance before a long stretch of detuned, smog-choked performance cars took over the 1970s. 8. Legacy and why it's so rare today. Only 12 ZR2 Corvettes were ever built in 1971.
That's it.
No other year, no second production run, no quiet returns. 12 cars. And then silence. Because of this, the ZR2 sits in a league of its own, even compared to the legendary L88. Collectors call it the Ghost Corvette, a car most people never even knew existed until decades later. When one surfaces at auction today, it's treated like a priceless artifact. We're talking seven-figure prices, if you can even find one. And the mystique isn't just about rarity, it's about what the ZR2 represents. It's the last of the big block, no-compromise Corvettes. The final chapter in an era when engineers weren't worried about fuel economy, emissions, or government restrictions. They were obsessed with speed, power, and building cars that could dominate on the track. Owning a ZR2 today isn't just about having a rare car. It's about owning a piece of history, a machine that marked the end of an age.
The ZR2 wasn't just a Corvette.
It was Chevrolet's boldest gamble and quickest retreat, a car so extreme they were almost afraid of it.
And maybe that's what makes it so powerful today.
The ZR2 isn't just rare, it's a legend that was nearly erased, only to become one of the most desired Corvettes ever made. The 1971 Corvette ZR2 was more than just a car, it was a fleeting moment in history, a machine born too wild for its time. With only 12 ever built, it remains one of the rarest, most mysterious Corvettes ever unleashed. It was the last roar of the muscle car era before regulations, insurance, and oil prices silenced the big block dream. And that's why the ZR2 isn't just a forgotten option code. It's a legend that reminds us of what happens when passion, power, and timing collide. This is Gear Ghosts, where we dig up the cars history tried to bury.